to me, pretty woman.
Well, it's not Willie Nelson, but it is a classic song. You don't have to take it all the way out, Sonny. There we go. Little Roy Orbison.
Little Roy. I was in a Roy frame of mind tonight.
Time to begin as we begin a Monday huddle on the Press Pros Magazine social media network. We're glad to have you with us. We're looking forward to talking about a recap of week 2, a preview of week 3. We have Brett Pierce, the head coach of Milton-Union. The Bulldogs with a big win on Friday night, avenging 2 losses to Valley View last year. It was a thriller, and PressProsMagazine.com had it covered with Greg Billing, and we'll talk to Rich Desrosiers of the Pro Football Hall of Fame at the bottom of the hour as the Pro Football Hall of Fame plays host to the coaching debut of none other than who, Sonny?
Eddie George.
Eddie George, that's right.
Eddie
the head
George.
football coach at Tennessee State University.
Number 27.
It's an all Tigers game, Sunday, 4 p.m., Grambling State, legendary program, of course, coached by the legendary late Eddie Robinson, and Tennessee State, which has the one and only Eddie George coaching them. So good evening to you, Mr. Folks. You can ask us a question on Facebook. Hit us on Twitter at PressProsMag. Pretty good second week of the high school football season. I would say from our traffic, people are engaged.
People have figured out we're out there. Yes, we have. We had the biggest weekend of readership over the weekend we've ever had. And I'm not sitting there blowing smoke or blowing our own horn. It's just great. It is really gratifying to have started something like this 10 years ago and have that many people from all over Ohio discover it, read it, appreciate it, write in. We have letters here tonight, questions, from even somebody wrote in from McConnellsville, Ohio. I hope I got this. Yeah, lovely McConnellsville. It's either Larry or Lori, I don't know, but they were kind enough to write, and so it was a good weekend. We saw some great football players, some great football teams, and I can't wait to talk about it tonight.
All right. Quickly to my game, your game, and then we'll get to Milton-Union head coach Brett Pierce. The Hilliard Darby Panthers are 2-0. They play Westerville South this week in Central Ohio. We are gaining traction in Central Ohio, as we certainly have already done many years ago in Western Ohio. Nice win for Darby over Bradley. And you had who on Friday night, Mr. Folks?
I had your Versailles Tiger versus your Fort Loramie Redskin. So I had the Tiger and the Redskin locked up in a titanic struggle, as Marty would say.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that much of a struggle because Versailles is very, very, very good. People, somebody wrote in here tonight and said, who are the best teams that you've seen so far? Well, we haven't seen enough to really answer that. But I can tell you 48-7 over a scrappy, well-coached, talented, albeit young, Fort Loramie team. Versailles really impressed me. The backstory of what Ryan Jones has done there, and this is just his third year, is remarkable. And I know a lot of people who really believe he's one of the best, brightest football minds in high school football in the state of Ohio. And it shows. It shows.
We saw it coming late last year when they really started to figure it out. Carson Bay started to figure it out at quarterback. Jack Osborne, Landon Henry in the backfield. They're big up front. They move people. They gave Roger Bacon a heck of a game in the postseason last year. They return experience in the backfield, which is not true of a lot of the teams that we cover, but they are very experienced, and Ryan Jones is doing a nice job. And speaking of able to run the football and able to punish you, and a big win on Friday night, this would be a pretty good time to bring in the head coach of the Milton-Union Bulldogs, who avenged not one but 2 losses to Valley View last year with a win on Friday at home, 26-22. There he is, Brett Pierce. Congratulations, Coach.
Oh, thank you very much. It sure felt good.
Coach, I couldn't help but think the other night, and I called you after the game just to congratulate you on the win. Every dog has his day, no pun intended.
Every Bulldog.
Coming off those 2, Bulldog has his day. But coming off those 2 beat downs you got from them last year, I would imagine practice last week, it didn't take a whole lot to get people stirred up.
Oh, no. Sometimes you really have to pull out all the tricks to motivate teenage kids. And last week was not one of those times. Our kids, everything we've done in the off season, most years when you ask our kids, who's the one team you want to beat? The answer is Miami East. That's our rival, and that's usually the answer, but not this year. This year, the answer was Valley View. Everything we did was geared towards Valley View. They were really motivated.
The thing that this goes back to the Jay Neiswanger days. I don't know how a team gets that kind of reputation just for being hard-nosed, because that comes in cycles. You got to have hard-nosed players, and kids come and go, and you don't always have the kind of personnel to play and establish that type of reputation. But they've been that way for as long as I can remember. Jay's not there anymore, but it doesn't seem to matter who coaches there. They always play the same style of football.
I think it's the community. I think they're at a point now where the fathers played for Jay 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I think that community just raises their sons that way. I think they buy into the coaching, they buy into Spartan football, and they're going to be tough every year.
Brett Pierce is our guest, head coach at Milton-Union. Bulldogs 26, Valley View 22 on Friday night. That makes Milton 2-0 as they head to Oakwood on Friday night. Your guys, you said, Brett, were pointing to this past Friday. Any concern at all that that's a game that they'll perhaps have a bit of a hard time putting in the rearview mirror to focus on what lies ahead?
With some groups, I might have that fear, but not this one. I really like this group of kids. They work hard. They're motivated. And we had more goals than just beating Valley View. Mm-hmm. And we know everything that we want to accomplish is still in front of us. And, we can't go 10-0 this week. We could go 1-0 or 0-1. And we've talked about that already this week. And I think our kids are focused on Oakwood.
Plus the fact that I go back a few years. I was thinking about this today, working on some notes. It's never been a guaranteed win when you go to Oakwood. There's strange things happen there.
Oh, Oakwood is a similar size school to us, and they've got very, very athletic players. We know they've got 4 or 5 kids that can score anytime they touch the ball. And so, this should be a very good ball game Friday night.
Now, Brett, you lost those 2 games to Valley View last year, and you didn't just lose them. They were lopsided games. So part of, I would think, preparing your squad was getting them to believe. When did you feel like, or what did you feel like the key factor was for you in getting your guys to believe that you could overcome what had been kind of a lopsided situation when you met them twice last year?
Well, like I said, everything we've done was geared toward it, and we've been telling them from the outset, we're building ourselves to make sure, maybe not necessarily to beat Valley View, but to make sure the way we lost never happens again. Mm-hmm. And you could tell our mindset going in. I was able to bring back a few coaches from my first go around as head coach, and I think we just instilled that into them. Now, having said that, we still weren't sure until kickoff how they were going to react the first time we got punched in the mouth by the Spartans. But luckily, we were the ones that came out swinging. We jumped up early, and I think it probably surprised some of the Valley View kids a little bit, because I know Valley View's coaches were telling their kids last week, Milton's pretty good, but I also know 17-year-old kids who knew they beat us so badly last year. There were probably a couple of their kids who didn't believe they could lose to us.
Brett Pierce is the coach of the West Milton, or the Milton-Union Bulldogs, our guest tonight. One of my particular favorites because he's a good guy to ask football questions to. And I had a coach tell me something last week I'd never heard before. I'm going to pose this question to you. He said, I wish there was no such thing as halftime. I hate halftime. He said, nothing against the band, but I hate halftime because I don't want to give the other team the chance to sit down and make adjustments. Let me make adjustments on the fly, but I want them to make their adjustments on the fly too. What do you think about that statement and halftime?
I tell you what, I've never been someone to worry about the things I can't control. I'm not going to get rid of halftime anytime in my life. So why spend any time worrying about it? Let the kids rest, get some Gatorade in them, They can make their adjustments. We'll make our adjustments, and we'll go back out and settle it. I can see if you think you're really, really good at making them on the fly, maybe you want that advantage, but not something we're going to change.
Yeah.
Brett, my era dates back to the TRC in its former life. Now you're back in the TRC first year. I would assume, just from what I remember from my time at the Troy Daily News, and those schools that now make up the TRC with some changes, with Troy Christian in there, but those are schools that have a lot of history. So I would think your kids are excited about playing in that conference.
Oh, we're very, very excited. One more week. Oakwood this week is our last non-conference game, and then we get to kick off the TRC. And our kids are very excited. And it's nothing against the SWBL. We loved our time in the SWBL. But kids from Waynesville, kids from Carlisle, kids from Madison, our Milton kids, they don't know them.
Yeah.
But when our kids go to the fair, guess who they see? They see Covington kids, Miami East kids, Bethel kids, Troy Christian kids, all the kids in Miami County and around. And that's who you want to play. That's who you want to beat, right? You want to see your friends from across town and say, haha, you didn't beat us this year. And so, we're very, very excited. And I think the communities are so close to each other and they're so supportive. I think we're going to get great crowds. I think you're going to have great atmospheres on Friday nights in Miami County.
I want to go back to talking football with you for a minute because, we have written about Blake Broomball already, your fine junior playmaker down there. I call him a playmaker because he can make a lot of different plays. But, the one thing that I would say, I know you're going to answer, I know you've got playmakers all over your field. You're anything but a one-trick pony. Blake Newmeyer can get you hard yards, running out of the tailback position. And you've got offensive linemen, you've got defensive secondary people that a lot of people, and I was just looking at Lee Woolery's photos from your game the other night and Greg Billings' story. You can look in the photos and see how many playmakers the Bulldogs have on the football field this year for you.
I think so. I hope so. We've got size where you're supposed to have size. We've got speed where you're supposed to have speed. Blake Newmeyer was 1,100-yard back last year. He goes like 6'1", 215. Matt Pickerel had 2 touchdown catches. I don't think you can just focus on Blake Broomball. Our quarterback, Nate Mortar, has done a great job. And then, like you said, our defensive line, kids like Jake Brown, Ethan Lane, Connor Yates are really stepping up. A couple seniors, Karis Twaits has done a really good job for us. Nick Walters has done a really good job for us. So I think we, a lot of times at Division 4-5 football, you're left trying to cover your holes a little bit, hiding your weak spots. And we don't feel like we're doing that this year. We feel like we're pretty solid at all 22 spots.
And Brett, I want to add this too, because I was down at your practice a couple of weeks ago and you were kind enough to spend a little time with me when you were trying to get ready for opening night and introduced me to a couple of your seniors and your captains. And I was so impressed about how mature those young men are. I mean, they didn't know me, and just to sit there and you pop some questions at them and their answers were exemplary and they were well-spoken and they just had their act together. And I know that makes you feel good as a coach.
Well, it does, because they're not just good football players. They're good kids, and you want to root for them. You want to watch them go out and succeed. And that's really a tribute to our community. These kids have good parents, good families, and they're growing up in a great community.
Yeah. Well, you've been a part of that community for a while, Brett. Congratulations. That's not only a win over Valley View, that's your 100th win at Milton. That's quite an accomplishment. And what I think you have to love about that is, as I read Greg Billings' story on PressProsMagazine.com, you made plays everywhere. Big halfback pass in that game, which your kids have to execute that. That's not something that it might be there, but a lot of times it's overthrown, it's dropped, tipped their hand. Your defense made some big plays in that game. I would think it's particularly satisfying, not just because of who the opponent was, but because of how you did it. It feels to me, I didn't see it, but it feels to me like everybody contributed to that one.
Absolutely. And as far as, 100 wins goes, it just means I had the best seat in the house to watch the young men of West Milton do their things 100 times over the years. I didn't make one block or tackle or throw one pass in all that time. But if you're going to call it a milestone, it was really fun to do it against Valley View, and it was really fun to do it in that fashion where everybody stepped up. We had to make some big, exciting plays. We had to survive down to the last second. A lot of people said that was a great, great football game to watch.
I know you got things to do tonight, and we'll let you out of here. But I think it's if nothing else comes out of this interview tonight, marching bands everywhere know that Brett Pierce says you deserve your 20 minutes of fame at halftime. Go out there. I can't change it.
Brett, I've heard you're a magician, and maybe you could make halftime disappear if you wanted to. I don't know.
No, we had a 90-minute lightning delay, so we cut halftime down to 10 minutes. We didn't just ignore halftime, but we cut it down to 10 minutes. But keep in mind, both my sons who have graduated high school from Northmont High School were in marching bands. So I'm going to give the marching band their due.
All right.
Yeah, they're just due. Absolutely.
Well, congratulations,
Coach Wills. Appreciate you having. I love to tell people about you. You're the only football coach that I know that can literally pull a rabbit out of a hat. Another time we'll try to do that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much, Brett. Good luck on Friday night.
Thanks.
There you go, Brett Pierce, head coach of the Milton-Union Bulldogs. That's a nice win, man. To win a tough one down to the wire. Hail Mary on the final play. They deny Valley View from the 38-yard line. That's how you want to script it. That's how you want to script it.
He is. I've known him for a long time, and he's an old West Carrollton guy, and to have done what he's done to win 100 games at Milton in the Southwest Buckeye League. Now, some of those wins had to come against Bellbrook. They had to come against bigger teams. Better teams. That's a tough league to play on, and particularly on the road. When you have to go to Franklin, or you have to go to Carlisle, or you have to go to some places like that, and you can still show a resume with 100 wins on it, that's getting it done.
Yes, it is. Well, now, speaking of teams that have gotten it done, we have a couple so far this year that are headed for a collision course on Friday night. You talked about Versailles and how good they look with Jack Osborne. What was it, 7 carries for 200 yards? Landon Henry, Ryan Jones, Versailles squad getting ready to take on another team, much like Milton, that's on a mission. Milton's mission was to take down Valley View, and I'm sure the Bulldogs have aspirations well beyond that. But we know Marion Local starts every year with its eye on a state championship, and the Flyers, I think, are going to be motivated all season long by their close loss to New Bremen last year in a regional finals. Marion Local and Versailles on Friday night. Break that one down for us.
Well, the thing that stands out, and I know there's a lot of people listening to this, and I hope you're not hanging on every word and expecting this to be prophetic, but the thing that impresses me the most about Versailles is the same thing I just mentioned that impresses me about Brett Pierce and the Bulldogs. They have great maturity on that team at vital positions. There are 2 running backs back there, as you mentioned, Landon Henry and Jack Osborne. When you talk to them, I mean, they're very businesslike. They're kind of corporate about the way they go about playing their position and doing their job on the field. They're not going to give you a lot of high fives and a lot of hyperbole and a lot of talk. The other night when they got done with the post-game huddle, they literally sprinted to the locker room. And that tells me we're not too excited about a week 2 win. We've got a bigger win down the road that we're going to work for next. And that's something that I think is very important for a football team to have, is the correct focus and priority. Marion Local, though, when you got to play them at home, particularly at home, that's a great environment, great atmosphere. Booster Field draws a great crowd. Everybody, it's the typical high school setting where everybody rings the fence around the track. And it's hard to get a breath of air in that place. I can see that would be a very intimidating place to have to go to play. So I think this is the marquee game. Again, it's very unusual when you have one back-to-back like Valley View and Milton last week, and this one between Versailles and Marion Local this week. Piqua Troy is this week for that matter. And that's going to be that's going to say an awful lot about who the top dog is in the MAC this year. And it's ironic that it comes in week 3, because that's a game that typically you'd like to see in week 8 or 9 or maybe even 10. But it's going to go a long way towards sorting out things in the MAC. And the interesting thing about it is one of those teams, and I think it's Versailles, doesn't even play Coldwater on the schedule.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think Versailles plays Coldwater.
So
the big game if Versailles could somehow find a way to win that game, they'd be. That's like they say you have a game in hand in hockey. You really have a game in hand right there. If you weren't going to have to play Chip Otten and the Cavaliers.
And as a play on words, you just said if they can find a way to win that game, they have the way to win that game.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the kids. There's somebody there the other night. It might have been Ryan Jones said, just do your job. Just go out and play your position. Execute the game plan. They're going to run the ball. I mean, you're going to see sweeps left and right. They're going to try to take time off the clock. They had a possession the other night where I think they ran the first possession of the second half. They held the ball for 8 minutes. When Fort Laramie had it back, they only had 4 minutes left in the third period. That's how they win football games. That's why they're so tough to beat. And they don't make a lot of mistakes. They had a couple of boners the other night, or bonehead plays the other night, where they failed to execute, but they don't do it very often. They're give Ryan Jones a lot of credit for going in there and establishing that mindset of doing your job and playing your position the way you practice in the week.
Well, I saw Versailles last year in the playoffs against Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy, and what leaped out to me about them was how well they run the sweep. I mean, they really seal the edge and get their backs onto the edge well, and they augment it with just enough passing from Carson Bay. So when I say if they can find a way to win, that's not meant as any kind, and I know you didn't take it this way, but some of the Tiger teams might, as any disrespect toward Versailles. But when you're going into an 11-time state champions home field, that you've told me, Sonny, one of the more impressive aspects of Marion Local that you saw in their game against Wapakoneta was their defense. You've bragged on their defense.
Yeah,
so the challenge for Versailles will be they will be dealing with a very talented Marion Local defense. And it'll be interesting to see, because I think Versailles has a very talented offense. They proved that. Fort Laramie, when you beat Fort Laramie like that at Laramie, that's a very impressive statement win by Ryan Jones and the Tigers.
Well, they Marion, to the point about defense, they have all 4 of their linebackers back from last year. Now, 3 of them are playing right now. I don't know if Drew Seitz is back yet. He's the biggest of them. He's like 6'2".
He's right there. Like we were told week 4, so he's got to be close.
Got to be close. He's like 6'2", 220, 225 pounds, and can run. Yeah. But all of their linebackers can pursue the football. It's very hard to get to the edge on them because their pursuit is so good. So if that defense is – and that defense had, I think, a half dozen, maybe 6 consecutive shutouts last year and 1 this year. So when you go to Macomb like they did last week, and that game was 3-0 into the fourth quarter, that's very stressful football, and he's relying on that defense to keep him in the game and give him a chance at the end. And ultimately, they did score, and they won it 10-0. But that defense is for real, and I know he feels like that he can rest on that until they get their offense together and get all the parts and all the machinery and Drew Seitz back at running back and all those kind of things clicking at one time. And that you're right. That defense is a major part of their game plan to win on Friday night.
The Press Pros Monday Huddle is presented by our friends at visitcanton.com. We know that a lot of you watching this show tonight, watching it on replay, and those loyal readers of PressProsMagazine.com will be visiting Canton in December for the State High School Football Championships at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. And so click on one of the visitcanton.com ads in a PressProsMagazine.com story, and you'll learn about all the lodging options, the entertainment options, the dining options, and there's a lot going on in Stark County, and you will not be sorry that those championships are returning to Stark County, because they love their high school football, and they do a phenomenal job hosting the high school football championships. We're excited to partner with visitcanton.com. We're excited they're the presenting sponsor of the Press Pros Magazine Monday Huddle. And we're looking forward to visiting with Rich Desrosiers of the Pro Football Hall of Fame at the bottom of the hour. And as I introduce him, there he is to tell us what they have going on at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium this weekend, the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic featuring Ohio State Heisman Trophy winner Eddie George coaching his college debut with the Tennessee State Tigers. Rich, thanks for joining us tonight. We're excited about your game on Sunday and coming to Canton in December.
Bruce, how are you doing? And Sonny, good to see you.
Great to have you with us tonight. I've said this so many times, and I said it last week when Tanja was on here with us. You know, no one was happier to see the finals go back to Stark County than I was, because, and I mean this sincerely, not because I'm not placating you, but that community up there and all the merchants and everybody up there is so excited about that weekend and do so much. Not lost upon me that to let people know we want you here. We're glad you're here. This is a big, big deal that you're here for us.
Well, you know, I've been in on the field level in Ohio Stadium for a state championship game, and you know, even with just a few thousand people, that place can amplify the sound a bit, but it's just lost, and it's you know, through no fault of anybody's, but you know, you put 3,000 or 5,000 people in a 100,000 seat stadium, and it just doesn't feel the same as it does if you put 5,000 or 7,000 in a 20,000 seat NFL caliber stadium. So we're excited to have the OHSAA back and looking forward to hosting those games.
Well, you've got a big event coming up this weekend, and it is a weekend event. I mean, you have everything going on up there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday even. And before we get into that Tennessee State Grambling game, Rich, tell us a little bit about the makeover at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, because I think probably a lot of our fans have not been there since you guys opened that back up, and it's really a beautiful facility that the people in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in tandem with the NFL did a great job with the redesign.
Well, you know, if you turn back the clock a ways to what was Old Fawcett Stadium and the home of the Canton-McKinley Bulldogs, and maybe you watched a game sitting on the hill in what is the West End Zone area, when they'd pack 20,000+ in there to see a Massillon-McKinley game in particular. It retains some of that flavor, but it's really virtually all new technology. Even since it's been redone a year ago now, this past season's added a gigantic scoreboard in the East End Zone, a scoreboard coming to the West End Zone that's actually the facade of one of the buildings on the Hall of Fame Village campus. It's everything that the NFL said it needed to be for the Hall of Fame game to stay in Canton. Canton-McKinley still uses it for its home games. And then, like you said, we've got the OHSAA looked at that facility and said, you know, we can have games in there back to back because of the locker room facilities and the press facilities and the concession facilities, and all of that makes it a viable alternative. And the NFL considers it its 33rd stadium. So we're looking forward to the day maybe when we get to host another game besides the Hall of Fame game in some form or fashion.
Bruce Hooley's going to be a little disappointed because he fell in love with Paul Brown Tiger Stadium last year. That's all I heard about. He says, man, how can it be any better than this? Well, you know, you're absolutely fortunate to have two facilities like that, ironically, within 10 minutes of each other.
That's right.
That are that good, and it gives you a lot of options and opportunities in the future. It's not too many, and it's the worst nightmare you can have for something to go wrong and not have a good plan B.
Well, and the state found that out last year, and boy, COVID taught everybody a lot of lessons last year, and certainly the Pro Football Hall of Fame learned from that as well. Missed out on the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic last Labor Day, so looking forward to this year with kind of an extra year of enthusiasm ramping up to it.
Well, it's a great event, and as we said, Eddie George will be coaching his first game at Tennessee State. Tickets start at just $29. Grambling, which is the gold standard, historically speaking, of programs, HBCU programs, and all starts on Thursday, 9 a.m., the Classic College Fair at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That is free for students. Friday, we've got a big party, 9 p.m. Friday night. Tickets to that are $30. There's a golf outing Saturday, a fun fest on the Centennial Plaza all day Saturday. You've got a Faith Family Football Gospel Concert. That's a free event on Saturday afternoon. A Rock the Block. A lot of free events with this. You guys are doing a really good job, Rich, of making it available to everyone, even if they're not ticket holders to the game.
Well, and, certainly the credit goes to the entire Stark County and beyond community for their support. I just today worked on a news release that we'll distribute tomorrow that lists the 36 or plus sponsors who are making this all possible. If it wasn't for their enthusiasm about it, buying tickets that they're distributing to some of their employees, or just in-kind donations in some cases, just for even things as kind of basic as the routine supplies that are required to put on an event like this, chairs and tables and even paper products to put in the plaza for people to picnic with, and just things like that maybe you don't think a whole lot about, but they add to the expense of putting on a show of this magnitude. And if it wasn't for those sponsors, we wouldn't be able to offer everything for free. Outside of the game, really, that there isn't much that costs people to participate in.
I'm dying to ask you this, and I just wonder if you've ever been in the Hall of Fame with lights out at night in the bust room, and whether those guys do talk to each other.
I know it happens, and during enshrinement week, there were a couple of really late nights. There was a really late night about 2 weeks ago. We had a film crew in that's actually doing something related to the Classic. They are putting together an augmented reality, virtual reality, augmented reality. I don't know the difference. They do, but they were doing filming way into the early hours of the next day. And I kept telling them, we got to get out of here so these buses can start talking to each other. And they looked at me. Because they sort of knew the story, but didn't really know the story. But Coach Madden was the first one to really say it, to my knowledge, publicly. I believe it. I think it happens.
Well, I think it would be interesting to hear what Hallis would have to say to Lombardi, but I don't think you could put it in the film.
Yeah, maybe not. And I know Derek Brooks is a great friend of the Halls, and actually a personal friend of President David Baker's, and is actually the first person that President Baker called in 2014. Of all the people that he's had a chance to call and then knock on the door for, Derek Brooks was the first one. And Derek realized that he was going to be across the hallway from Warren Sapp, and he was concerned that he'd never get a night's peace. And I would love to hear stuff like that. And of course, Peyton had a long kind of riff on that during his enshrinement speech, and gave it some more life. So somebody will catch it some night.
Well, listen, I'll say this to all our fans in Coldwater, Versailles, Marion Local, New Bremen, all you schools, and a lot of the Central Ohio schools too, Westerville South, looking at that D2 state championship trophy with longing eyes, and a lot of contenders in D1 with Pick Central at the top of the list in Central Ohio. There is no better way to get a scouting report on all the great dining and lodging options and entertainment options in Stark County than to go this weekend. Get up there early. Sunday, you don't have to get up and go to school Monday now. Sunday, 11 a.m., pregame party at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's a free event. You go through the hall, man, you'll be fired up. Go in the gift shop. You don't have to buy admission to go in the gift shop. Find any merchandise you want for your favorite team. We're presented by VisitCanton.com. We're excited about the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic Sunday at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. Click on any VisitCanton.com ad or the HBCU Classic ad in our stories this week. It'll take you right to the site. You can book your tickets, be there, and see the coaching debut of Eddie George, former Ohio State Buckeye, now coaching at Tennessee State.
And, these should be really evenly matched teams. Both picked to the middle or upper half of their respective conferences, the Southwest Athletic, the SWAC, which has such a storied history, and Tennessee State. I don't know that the prognosticators have a good feel for them yet because, Coach George is new, and there's been some turnover in that program. A new coaching staff, Hugh Jackson's on that staff, and some other people with a lot of experience. So, they could surprise a lot of people, but I think it's going to be a really competitive game. Of course, we haven't mentioned the bands yet, but the band show itself is probably worth the price of admission. Grambling's bringing 200 plus in their band, and they'll also there's also a planned performance for them at Centennial Plaza again. Bruce and Sonny, another one of those events. Costs nothing to see. Come down to Centennial Plaza just to see the Grambling band, if nothing else. And Tennessee State's band is over 300 strong. So there'll be more than 500 performers on that halftime field, and the drum lines and all of that. That's all part of the classic environment too.
Well, that's pretty cool. And Rich, we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate the partnership with visitcanton.com. Look forward to seeing you and shaking your hand at the Hall of Fame this December when we're up there.
That's good.
Weekend.
That'll be here before we know it. And high school football in Ohio is something special. And you mentioned that MAC conference. We could see, if this year's like some of the several recent ones, could see 2 or 3 teams from that conference all playing for state championships.
Well, I think they're going to be very tough and very representative in 5, 6, and 7 divisions. Yeah. So they have won 3 titles before, and we were just talking about Versailles, and you got a Marion local and a Coldwater and a New Bremen, and Marion local for the fact
right
would
down
be
the
going
line.
Their 12th title this year if they got there. So yeah, there'll be a lot of interest here, and I can absolutely guarantee you, if whether they get there on the field or not, there is a huge contingent of people here who have that on their calendar marked every year. This is a must do. We have to go to the state finals in Canton. So a lot of people, you draw well from this area.
That's all we sure do. Last one out of some of those communities gets to turn out the lights and bring the trophy back.
That's right. That's right.
Rich, thanks so much for your time tonight. And we
all right, Bruce.
On the road.
All right, guys. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, you bet.
All right,
Rich Desrosiers, Pro Football Hall of Fame, the HBCU Hall of Fame Classic. Sunday, the game, but a lot of events all week. And we thank our partners at visitcanton.com for helping us help you find the place where you're going to stay, where you're going to eat, what you're going to do in between games on the first weekend in December when the state championships go to the brand sparkling, redone, and gorgeous Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. All right, Sonny, before we close up shop, let's tackle a little bit of the readers' email inbox. What do we have?
All right, here we go. I mentioned this from McConnellsville, Ohio. I'll let you explain the backstory of this if you want to. It's Larry or Lori? I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I think it's probably Lori from McConnellsville, Ohio, wrote in and said, "Love your articles about Saturday's football game at Fort Fry and wondered if you've heard about Boondocks Barbecue in McConnellsville. You had to have passed it on the way if you came on 60. Did you think about stopping?" Bruce, you go first.
Well, we did note it for sure, along with the soldier statue in the center of the roundabout in McConnellsville. I was struck by how beautiful that drive was down there along the Muskingum River. But I will say, when I passed Boondocks, I did say to Sonny, not going inside, no disrespect, but I said, that looks like a place where you could get in a bar fight. I might be wrong, I might be right, but I said, that looks like a place where you could get in a bar fight. And having the game to cover, we didn't have time for that. So we just kept on going.
No, Lori, we had a timetable to keep, and we had to get on down the road. We'd never been there before. I had never been in Beverly, Ohio before. And I'm one of those people that I want to be early because I want to get there and make sure that I get everything situated. And I hate being late and want to make sure I had the lay of the land before the game started. But we did note it on the way down. It looked like a great place to eat. And if I'm ever down that way before, I have it duly noted. Here's one from Russ. I know this guy in Sciotaville. I'd like to hear what you guys think. Bruce Hooley, what do you guys think is Ohio State's number one priority in terms of position play this season?
Well, I mean, obviously it's quarterback. You can't have a terrible quarterback, but I don't see how you could be a terrible quarterback with all the talent around C.J. Stroud. And we'll see that Thursday night at Minnesota, and Press Pros will be covering that game with Mark Snyder and Sonny Folks. And I think if you want to take the obvious out of it, I think they have to get a pass rush. I think their defense is not proven at linebacker or in defensive backfield. A great pass rush cures a lot of ills. They don't have a proven pass rush. They have highly touted guys. Can they get to the quarterback or not? We'll start to see on Thursday night. If they can't, that could cause them problems down the road. I don't see them losing maybe Oregon, but I can't really see that in Ohio Stadium. But as we found out last year, your deficiencies get exposed when you play a team of comparable talent like Alabama.
Russ, here's how I would answer that. I'm a little bit different, a little perspective-wise than what Bruce just highlighted. I would say that number one priority with me is the way your offensive line is going to play. You got a brand new quarterback who's going to have a case of the yips. You've got some young running backs back there. You want to establish the running game to take the pressure off C.J. Stroud and some of the throws that he's going to have to make. You want to certainly give him adequate time to break in over those first 3 or 4 games and get his feet wet and get comfortable. And the biggest thing you want to do is you want to keep him healthy. You want to keep him vertical and not have to make a quarterback change 3 or 4 games into the season because of an injury. So I would think their offensive line, which is huge, which is talented, and one of their best assets, is going to be a number one priority in the way it plays this year, Bruce. I just have to believe if you got to score points, and the best way to start is to blow people off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I consider them pretty proven. I don't consider their pass rush proven. Justin on Facebook says this Friday, Sydney will celebrate the 50th anniversary of the 30-0 team from 1968 through 70.
Yeah.
It was something about COVID. I don't know. I thought we might get through a whole show without a COVID mention, but Justin got us one in.
Impossible.
That would be nice.
One last one, since we were talking about players here. This comes from Randy and Troy. He says, you guys have a top 5 from what you've seen of area football players for 2021.
I think it's too early.
Not after 2 weeks.
No, not after 2 weeks. I don't want to leave anybody out, and I want to see more teams. But that's a good question for later in the year. Very good question.
All right, there you go. Appreciate it. 3's all we got tonight, and big weekend coming up. A lot to see. That Marion game is going to be great. You mentioned COVID. I'm just going to bring this up. Right now, they have some issues with the Troy and Piqua game. They don't know if that game's going to be played Friday. It could be played on Saturday. It's one that they definitely want to play because it's a big financial gate for the home team, which this year happens to be Troy. So I know Dave Palmer wants to do everything they can do to get that game on the field and people in the stands and give the two communities a chance to enjoy the rivalry and tell the old stories and create some new ones for the future. So let's hope that does get off the ground for this weekend.
No doubt. And with that, we want to thank Rich Desrosiers of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Brett Pierce of Milton-Union, you for watching, whether it's live or on the replay, and we thank our friends at visitcanton.com for being the presenting sponsor of the Press Pros Monday Huddle. Click on those visitcanton.com ads or the one about the HBCU Tennessee State Grambling game. A lot of great events going on with that one, and a great way to scout Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium for what you fans hope will be a trip up there to follow your favorite team this December in the state championships. Thank you for watching. Truman, go to bed, and we'll see you all again next Monday on the Press Pros Monday Huddle.
Good night, everyone.